back to the Find Your Place podcast, where we talk all things finding your place in the world. Last week, we talked about beauty standards and what those mean for us and for others and how to get past them. This week, we're talking about something even more important, relationships, and more importantly, how to not sabotage them and how to thrive in them. And we have a very special guest today. We have Dean on the podcast.
Hello.
Just to have that male perspective, and we're so excited to get into it. We actually have inspiration for this podcast, and Jess is going to share more about that now.
Welcome, Dean. So for those of you that don't know, this is the man behind the camera. He's with us every week. He's taking care of everything for us. So we thought that, B and I are always discussing these topics, but as you mentioned, it'd be amazing to have male perspective. So feel free to share.
Cool.
So as B was saying, a few weeks ago, we were listening to a few podcast episodes. I'm a podcast junkie. So whenever I'm getting ready or doing anything, I need to have a pod in the background. And so I shared with you this podcast. And for those of you that, I don't know, some people listen on Spotify, others are on YouTube. Titles are different, but it was an episode with Lewis Howes and Mel Robbins. And essentially, so on Spotify, the title reads, "Stop sabotaging your relationships and do this instead." And on YouTube, it says, "That relationship won't last. The common mistakes that sabotage love."
It's interesting because I'm pretty sure that the titles are geared towards the actual audience and the title to click on it, which is awesome because Spotify and YouTube are obviously different. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I actually listened to this episode, I think 3 times. So initially I listened to it when I was on my way back from St. Thomas with my family. Mm-hmm. And I never have a specific episode that I want to listen to. I just open Spotify, I go to his playlist, and then I just click whatever is available. And my parents were in the car and I turned it on. And within 5 minutes, I was like, this is solid. Just when within that 5-minute point where there's already so many goodies being shared. So I ended up listening with my parents. I'm like, guys, let's listen to this together, because I've been doing so much work and self-development work. And, parents are always curious about what I'm doing. What does it mean? Why are you always doing this stuff? So I found it to be quite interesting. And so we listened to it together. I sent it to a bunch of my friends and I was like, we need to listen to this because there's a bunch of goodies.
Not only did you send it to your friends, but people saw it on your story that were my friends and they sent it to me.
Okay.
That's how I listened to it before you even shared about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was because it was on your story. Someone saw it and they sent it to me and they're like, look what Jess just posted. It's a really good one. You should watch it.
So good. So good. So yeah, what I did was, I listened to it 3 times. The first time, just listened to it throughout, took some mental notes. And then I was like, okay, I have to listen to this again. I have to take notes of what they discussed. And what I loved about this episode was there was so much authenticity and transparency and so much sharing about personal experiences, which is, I think, how we end up connecting with people. It's one thing to talk about a certain topic, but it's another thing to then actually share your experience. Excuse me, sorry, my voice. See, I know I needed water. And then, connect with the person who's sharing that story. So there were a few themes that came up that both of them actually touched on, which clearly states and shows to us that these things are probably very important to dissect and to discuss. And so I'm happy that we can do that today. I'm sure we all come from different experiences, different life stories. So the way we respond even to these themes would be very different. So the 2 main themes, how I would categorize it, that they discussed were healthy matches, when we're talking about relationships, and then healing, which I think work hand in hand, because I don't think one exists without the other, right? So both of them discussed, some of the things that both of them discussed in the healthy matches section were love languages, how important those are, and the importance of understanding what your partner's main currency in a relationship and life is. And I'll explain what they mean by that. And on the healing side of things, they spoke about the importance of healing yourself first and emotional regulation, triggers from childhood and how that shows up in our adult relationships, and the importance of doing therapy. So I just threw out a bunch of terms at you guys. Are there any of them that you want to start with?
I want to start with going around and kind of seeing, because we have 3 different perspectives here. What are some of the things that you've seen again and again in the opposite sex, in relationships that it's just shown up constantly in your relationships that's been a sort of struggle? And we're talking about just a common thing that you see across, maybe even in your friends' relationships, but something that, of the opposite sex that is just constantly reoccurring that needs to be fixed?
Dean, you want to start us off?
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
I was trying to think while you were asking the question, and I was loading my answer. I don't know that I've seen like a one attribute repeated over and over again, but if I were to guess that, if I've only had like a handful of girlfriends in the last like 10 years or so, 4 or 5, and like serious ones. And I think one thing that is, maybe not necessarily repeated in my personal experience, but I think I've seen with friends and with, even friends that I know that are female, is the power of social media to destroy a relationship.
Oof, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah. So like I said, the majority of my relationships were, years ago when social media wasn't what it is today. But I can see with friends and friends of friends that the ability to have access to a better option 24/7 knocking at your door, especially for women. If you're an attractive woman, you have, you guys would know, tens of DMs an hour sometimes. If you post a nice selfie, you'll get 15, 20 replies from different men. And I think that's not only a struggle for the woman necessarily, or the person getting the messages to remain sort of loyal, but also for the opposite person in the relationship to trust that person with all that opportunity.
Wow, so much to unpack there, right? We're talking trust issues. We're talking seeking external validation. We're talking about all of these other factors that are, like some of these social media. I mean, actually, a lot of them have made social media their lives and an actual business. They're working. So now you have this weird dynamic where you're in a relationship and the currency is your body or something that you're using that's external to be able to make that. To make money, and you have to now navigate a relationship. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's tough.
It's a good one.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to jump into that deeper later. B, do you want to answer your own question?
Something that I see that's common across like all. I think it's this test driving concept. I really think that the test drive concept is really worn out, played out, and probably at the root core of all of our failures in relationships and it actually feeds well into your point. It's that because there are so many options and because there is something that has withered our integrity as individuals over time, and whether that be social media or culture or whatever it is,
a combination
of it all. This dating people and really not taking the time to really do your research on them before you even date them. Like you shouldn't. The idea of going on a date a night to try to find the right person is just training you for something. The idea of dating someone for 6 months, a year, if that's your pattern, and then something happens in that time where it ends and it breaks or whatever it is, we have to look at that. Like, why is this pattern happening? And are we practicing for something here? Are we practicing for lifetime, or are we really just practicing for divorce and separation? Yeah. That's my thing.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the hookup culture as well, right? Opportunity, availability. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, it's available to me elsewhere. So I think that makes me think, like, are we dating with intention? Right? And so I often find that that's a conversation that my friends and I have all the time. Like, why are you dating? Are you just dating to pass time? And there's no judgment there. If that's the case, then just be clear with the person that you're seeing that that's all you're looking for, right? Like, I think transparency is important. And not to say that it's right to do so.
But with like men and women, the transparency thing works different, right? A lot of the time, I actually know this actually could happen with both sexes, but sometimes someone tells you pretty straight up in their actions and their words that they're only looking for this, and something in our twisted brains when we're not fully healed says, I can change that. Well, I'm going to be the one.
Well, that's the thing, right? So then whose responsibility is that? If we come back to the drawing table and we're having a conversation about it, who took the responsibility? Who decided to continue pursuing, even though that person was transparent with you, right? But then I think that's even deeper than that, because I think there's some sort of trigger there or some sort of trauma that's making us want to pursue that person, even though they told us that they're not ready for that, right? And then that comes back to the whole healing thing. Even in the podcast, they talk about how there are certain triggers and certain things that we're drawn to as a result of relationships we had with our parents or guardians from a young age that we actually seek in adult relationships because that's comfort. Why do people stay in unhealthy relationships? Well, because there's some sort of comfort level there because they're familiar with it. Mel was talking about in her podcast that her partner found her. She's super busy. She's go, always active. And then when they sat down and dissected it, well, he had parents that were always busy, right? And so I don't think he even knew consciously that that's why he was drawn to her. Sometimes people are in what I call chaotic relationships. So there's always chaos, there's always conflict. And then when you're in a healthy relationship, you're like, wait, what? Is it supposed to be this easy? Is this light? So, why do they seek the chaos? Well, there's something there that maybe hasn't been healed or some sort of familiarity, which they're drawn to because that's their comfort. As for my answer to this question, I think a common thing that we see is that people seek happiness in other people, and that's the reason why they get into relationships. So, we think we'll be better with someone, and then, what ends up happening is either one person's not healed or both of them are not healed, and then they're together, but there was no really, I guess, deep conversation and understanding, like you said, who that person is, what are their values, what do they stand for? And I think one of the key takeaways from this podcast, which I'm actually implementing not only in the dating space, but also with your own friends, because you could be friends with someone from the age of 3, but now you're 30 years old. You may not be in line anymore. And Lewis was talking about how when he started dating his partner, they did like a value assessment, and he brought it up and he's like, hey, let's see if we're in line with one another when it comes to our values. And I think that is so incredibly important because before jumping into any intimate action with an individual, wouldn't you want to know where they stand? Like, what do they think about? What's important to them? Because if that's not in line, what's the point of jumping into bed together?
I'm starting to see now that the actual common theme between all 3 of us is rooted in one thing only. And I think that's selfishness. I think that's whatever's happened in our world to this that has us go. It's all about. It's not. We don't say it's all about me. We say it's whatever makes you feel best. It's like it's what your heart desires. Protect your energy. Like all these different little slogans that we have are rooted in this selfish, like, if you don't bring up good feelings in me, then you're not worth my time.
Yep. And we're so quick to write people off.
Exactly.
If that's the case.
What do you think, Dean? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think, just in general, outside of, girlfriend, boyfriend relationships, intimate relationships, I think just in general, society has obviously gotten more selfish, from whatever year you want to call the 50s on. There was a big emphasis on, the group, I think, back then, and coming hot off of a couple world wars will probably do that to you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think there's a lacking of sort of teamwork. There's a lack of teamwork and like collaboration and maybe thinking of others in society today, at least from what I can see. And of course, that's going to flow over to both genders, and it's going to be with women, it's going to be with men. And of course, like I said, when you have the ability to have a fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and then, hey, guess what? I got 7 other girls or 7 other guys who are dying to take me on a date. Fuck you, I'm going. And that's what ends up happening, I think, sometimes. Not every time, but I can definitely see that with friends and other relationships, just friends even. Like selfishness has gotten, it's hockey sticked all the way up.
Now, okay, and that's a really good point, right? So the people that we see around us sometimes, and this is where some of the solutions come in, right? So the problem is selfishness. The problem is hookup culture. The problem is all of this. And so, what is the solution? It sounds like 2 things: courage to speak out when you see your friends falling into those habits. And that's a tough one, right? Because we love our friends and we want to be like, yeah, girl, screw him. He blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what? We do it. Yeah. So like, how do we help our friends to make better decisions in their relationships and to choose love? Obviously it's lots of work within ourselves. Outside of courage, service, right? Like, how do we commit to serving someone completely? What is the answer to that? Because how do you remove selfishness to serve And then is it because we're too afraid that we're going to put too much in and that there's not going to be enough given back to us? Like, why are we like this? Like, what is this?
I think there's so many layers to that, but one of them is the fear of giving yourself completely to someone else and not knowing what will come out of that, right? I think a lot of us are driven by fear.
So I've been going to therapy, and I realized something pretty serious about me and my relationships. And I don't know if anyone's going to resonate with this, because this is a hard one to come to terms with. And I'm saying it on a podcast. So that sometimes I like to give a lot. Not sometimes. I love to give. I want to literally serve someone to the ends of the earth. If I love you, I will give you. I want to give you everything. But there's a really twisted, dark part of that for me. And it's that when you don't reciprocate, I feel some way about it. Mm-hmm. I really feel like you're not appreciating me. And not only that, but I start to victimize myself about it. And it's...
What's that constant, I guess, thought? That's because we have a script in our head always, right? What do you tell yourself? What's that voice telling you when you're feeling that way?
I guess there's quite a few of them. It's something along the lines of like, I know what it is. It's that thing that starts coming up in you that's starting to question, do I look stupid? Like, am I doing too much? Am I looking stupid here? Right? And it's like that thing that rises up in you that's like, am I foolish for doing all these things for this person? Like, now I'm getting suspicious of them because I don't really feel like they're reciprocating, and maybe they're just using my good nature. And first of all, this doesn't get communicated. And then all of a sudden, there are actions and responses that change on my behalf that totally sidetrack the other person.
And they have no clue.
They have no idea why.
Head.
I just feel unappreciated, and I'm trying to now protect myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing too much and I'm showing too many of my cards. And if you're too nice to someone, they're going to abandon you. And like, what are you going to do then? And so, man, it is, I don't know if you guys experienced that, but I discovered that, and wow.
I can definitely echo those thoughts as well. And I think those things stem from a deeper issue, which comes from within. But you made me think of the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And so your way, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe your way of showing love, and I think showing love and receiving love could also be done differently. You show love by doing acts of service, right? You show someone, I care for you, and I will do X, Y, and Z for you because I care for you and love for you.
I'm more like gifts. I really love fixing people's problems with gifts.
Okay.
Like, your back hurts. I'm going to get you like a $7,000 massager for your back. Like, you might never use it. You never asked for it. And then, yeah.
And that's your way of showing love.
I just want to buy you
gifts.
Everything that'll fix all your problems.
Okay. So Bianca's love language and her way to show that she loves you is that she'll buy you gifts. Whereas the person on the receiving end, they may not even respond to something like that because that's not actually what they're looking for. That's not their way of receiving love, right? Yeah. So, and this is what he says in the book. And when I read this book years ago, I'm like, when he gave the example, it was so clear. He goes, it could be two people speaking. One of them is speaking Chinese. The other is speaking English. I don't know what languages he used in the book, but both are speaking. There's noise. You can hear the sound, but neither of them understand each other. And so both are trying, but there's no common language and stuff, right? So this is where I think it's important to ask these questions. When you meet someone and you're going out with them for the first time, no one is a mind reader. And we spoke about this on another episode. The person only knows you the way you present yourself. Yes, they can go and do research. They could go find out, what kind of things do you like? What kind of pages do you like? They could start to develop an understanding, but really no one knows you better than you know yourself. Especially
That's not true.
I think if you do the work,
yeah.
And so that's where I want to get to. No one knows you better than yourself if you do the work, right?
Because a lot of the time, here's the thing. It's like you build up a persona based on the people that you think you should be for that particular personality. And that's a common thing, don't you think? People faking who they are to...
Yeah, they might not even know they're necessarily even doing it. They might just sort of adopt certain traits or whatever interests that the other person that they're seeing has just because they feel like they need to get closer.
I used to do something really toxic. I'm just putting it all out on the table for you guys because I've done so much work. I used to I used to want to be one of the boys so bad, and like it was like a double-ended sword. So like I wanted to be one of the boys so bad, but it always had to do with almost like, and not reducing women in the sense that like I would put women down, but like in a misogynistic way of like, yo, bro, look at her, look how
Right.
she, right, to take the attention off of me,
Off
to be
of
one
you.
of the boys,
Yes.
and to sort of like
Seek validation. Is that seeking validation or seeking like community
maybe
or
community, or like almost like I'm gonna point out something in her that I know that you're already looking at or thinking or something, so that I can protect myself. And I'm like, I again, not looking stupid, so I can't look stupid.
I've done that. I've actually, now that you're saying that, I've done that before too.
You know,
For
and
sure.
there's something about that. It's like I love women, I respect women, and like how am I wanting to be respected by the men that I'm with? And I'm kind of like being a female misogynist where I'm just like pointing out their sexy features or something like this, so that I can feel
More comfortable
Yeah, like-
about yourself.
yeah, like I see you doing whatever you're doing, and you know you can't hide it from me. Like
Right.
You know?
Right.
yeah,
So what was I forgot what I was getting at before, but I think what I wanted to say was, what were we speaking about? Not understanding ourselves.
well, here's the thing. It's like, how do you get to know yourself in this? Like,
Love languages.
yes,
So, I mean, I think there's many ways to getting to know ourselves, but it's doing the work and really sitting down with yourself. And so, you know, why is it so difficult for us to have these conversations with people when we're meeting them? Like, that's where my mind goes. Like, why is it so, you meet someone and all of a
I
sudden
had that thought
it's,
just as you were talking before, and I love that you're.
you
I
know,
love
and
this.
it's like, why can't we just be open and say, hey, like, this is what's important to me. Is this, and like, I don't care how good looking you are. It doesn't matter how, you know, if we can't get in line with, you know, the way we think and what we value in life, why are we going to try, back to what you were saying in the beginning, to try to make it work, even though the person told us that they're not looking for what we're looking for? I feel like it's just like, and maybe that's just how we function as humans. I don't know.
In the relationships that you've been in, Dean, like we might need a male perspective on this one. Have you ever either had someone tell you directly, these are my values, this is what I need? Or conversely, have you done that with someone and actually went your own ways, or decided that like, okay, yeah, our values are aligned here? Like, have you ever as a man had that conversation?
No.
No.
No. Not,
Okay, so-
not that I can think of.
Okay, so help.
Partially, I should say partially. Obviously, there's some discussion like, you know, either it comes up naturally or there's like, hey, just so you know, I'm not seeing anybody else. I would expect that the person I'm with is not seeing somebody else, that kind of stuff. But in terms of like, I don't know, long-term goals like babies, marriage,
Yeah.
where do you want to live? Like that I've never.
Now, would you be uncomfortable if you had a girl who like within the first few dates started asking you those questions? Honestly, as a
Honestly,
man.
tell us
I don't
honestly.
think so. I don't think so. But I mean, I can see
He's
how
also
a lot
a
of,
gem.
Well, thank you. I can see how, like, you know, either gender or either sex could be sort of like, I guess, scared off by that, right? Like, who is this person? I just met them and we're on our second dinner date and he's asking me, like, do I want kids? You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't do that because they're afraid of, like, either looking like a jackass or scaring off the other person. Like,
You know,
they care
ladies,
too much.
the best way to really talk about the marriage and kids thing,
Yeah.
it's like, I need to make it clear that
This is what I'm looking for.
well, not only forget that, because that's like, well, obvious, but when you're saying that, it's like, just because I'm about to ask you a question, but just because I'm asking you this question doesn't mean you're the one I want to do it with.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like just
Yeah.
straight up, like it's not, I'm
Yeah.
not here looking at you and I'm like, I'm going to trap you.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Like, do you want these things? And if you don't, that's all right. Even if you do, I still might not want to do these things with you. Like,
Exactly.
just-
I still don't even know you, but I would like to understand that. Are we looking to head the same way?
and you might not want those things with me.
Yeah.
So like, you can answer honestly and be like, I might want kids and marriage, and it also doesn't mean that I want it with you, right? Like, really giving them, if somebody gave you permission like that, would you answer that question honestly?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. I think what happens is a lot of people fear, like, well, that's the end. If I answer wrong or whatever, this is like a test. If she
Yeah.
says she wants kids and I say I don't know, that's it. There's no
Yeah.
third date. Or
I'd
whatever,
actually
right?
rather that though.
But
Than
men
the
have a
whole-
different thing, because men have a much more difficult time being able to get to that first date, right? Like, so it's like, and the thing is that a lot of the time they might even be super uncertain. Like, they might not even, know themselves. So to potentially lose the mate, the partner, whatever that partner would be giving them, whether it's time or, you know, their body or whatever it is, right? Like it's a bigger loss, would you say? For not a bigger loss.
I don't know if it's a bigger loss, but it's obviously generally more difficult. Like men do not get the attention online that women do, right? Like I mentioned before, I know, you know, very pretty girls who can post a selfie and look at 50 people and obviously most of them are not going to be something worth replying to, but who knows if there's 10% even every day, if they post a selfie, they get 5-6 new people that might be somebody they're interested in. Right. So
honestly, I think a lot of this is rooted in rejection, and I'm going to speak from a personal experience. And I remember during COVID, I was online dating, but like talking to people on FaceTime. Like, I don't know, what do you do? And I spoke to someone for an hour, and then I think a couple hours later he messaged me, and like I knew it wasn't a thing. So this is the thing about me, and this is I think an issue we all have as people, because we're so fearful, and we think meeting someone automatically means that we both want to date each other. No, it's like when you meet a friend, doesn't mean if you introduce me to a friend, Bianca, doesn't mean I have to be friends with your friend just because you made the introduction and we sat together for half an hour. So I think that often, you know, scares people. So I'm the type of person where I will meet people. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to date you. You may become a really good friend of mine. You may become a mentor of mine. You may become, I don't know, a partner of mine in some sort of venture. Like that's okay. That's how I view it. So we went on FaceTime, we were chatting, and, you know, just through our conversations, they were really great conversations, talking about values and all that. I realized, I was like, you know what, we're not really in line. And after that call, he messaged me and he was like, Jess, I really appreciate your time. I just want to let you know that I don't see this being like a romantic thing. And I respect that so much that he could tell me that. I felt the same way too. But the fact that he had the courage to say that, and it wasn't an attack against me. I didn't see it that way, but oftentimes that's how we paint it. It's I'm being rejected, you know? So no, like I would rather that than continue talking to this person and not knowing how they feel. Once again, back to communication, right? So I think we fear communicating because of the unknown, and we don't know what response we're going to get, right? So I don't know. I think there's just so much to unpack with that.
Self-love and a lack of self-love is rooted in a lot of this as well, right? And I'm going to speak for myself, but when I finally stopped denying that I really wanted a long-term relationship and I wanted to be with one person and you know, through thick and thin and all the troubles and all the good stuff that comes with it, and when I can admit to myself that I wanted someone, period. Like not that whole self-denial thing of like, I don't need anybody and, you know, like whatever happens. And, you know, I had to do an audit, and I'm still doing it, an audit of, okay, if I want this person, what are the things that I'm doing to attract this person? And this goes back to what Dean's saying, right? It's like there are some sacrifices that you need to make if you really do want to achieve some of those things. And some of them are like, they're fleshly things. They're like things that are really hard to give up. The validation of others, the money you're making online on OnlyFans or whatever other platform you're on, this kind of stuff. It's like we come to men and we go, well, I want you to accept me the way that I am, and like this is how I am. This is how I am, and this is what I do. And like someone else might accept you that way, but it's like, why do we feel entitled as women to never sacrifice anything for men? We believe they have to come to. You have to show me complete devotion all the way through 100%. And then I might consider not being as provocative, not, you know, dating multiple people. I mean, some men do this too, but I'm just talking about me as like my experience. And so like having to give up, you know, I was doing fitness. I had this really big social media thing where I was dressed like pretty provocatively in all my photos. It really was like social influencer style stuff. And, just looking at it and being like, okay, who am I attracting? And if I was him, would I look at me and be like, you know what, this is someone who has a character and values that I could see raising my family, and like somebody that I can see that can be completely trustworthy while I go out and gather whatever I need to bring back to her. Right. And the truth is, if you really look closely, a lot of the time, the answer is, yo, you you're not getting that man because there's nothing about you that says these are the character traits I have to be able to deserve you. So like, I don't know what you think about that, Dean, but.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously different for women and men, but I think that like a lot of men who are looking for a long-term girlfriend, they might not even know it until it smacks them in the face. Like, you know what I mean? Men
are just like walking around. They're like, oh, I'm just doing things, whatever it is. It's like, it makes you go, whoa.
I think the average man's brain is a lot more like, 100,000 years ago. It's still set 100,000 years ago. They see the curves, they see the bumps that they like, and then they forget about the bullshit right away, instantly, right? And they can put a lot of stuff aside. But the problem is eventually all of that stuff fades. Not like physically it fades, but like the interest in the same girls, same curves, same thing fades. And then there's got to be something behind that. There's got to be, I can trust her, or, she's not lazy. She's not here looking for my money or like an easy ride, whatever, depending on the situation. But I think it's, for men, they're willing to kind of like put a lot of the stuff that may be negative aside right away, which is why I think my friends have been in relationships for 6 months and then it's not so fancy. The shine on the car goes away and you suddenly realize the engine's a piece of shit, right? So that I think happens a lot with friends of mine. Obviously, even to myself, that's happened. I'm not going to say that I haven't done that before. I've dated a woman for her looks and then it's not even like I know that that's what I'm doing. But then after a little while, you realize there's nothing under the hood here. Yeah. And, whatever it is, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it ends up being, I think that's also part of the issue too. There's a lot of like, I don't know that it's anybody's fault necessarily. You may not know that's what's happening, but that happens a lot where people kind of get into something for physical reasons or for one particular reason or whatever. We go to the same gym and it's great and blah, blah, blah. But then, the substance isn't there down the road. So.
Wow. So then it's like sometimes it's also, I know that I was putting a lot of onus and responsibility on myself and women and stuff, but it's true. Like the thing is that men need to take a really serious like inner look as much as they possibly can so that they can have this sort of this built up tolerance for seeking out character in someone, right? And that only happens when they actually come to the terms, because he said usually like it just slaps you in the you see a woman, she's beautiful, and then you kind of start liking some of her other qualities, and then you're like, okay, I might want to date you. Like now I want to be serious with you. You got some good qualities, right? But like if you don't come to the realization that you want a wife or like someone that you want in your life forever, you're not going to be looking for those things. Who's going to be like, okay, you're not the hottest, you don't have all the bumps in the world, but wow, like you were in service to this and you went and you like were in community here, and wow, you're not really appealing to me at all on social media, and like you know what I mean, like. So then the onus kind of goes on you guys too, right? You guys, you're training us too to really only get your attention and affection when we act the way that you don't really want us to act in relationships once you fall in love with us. Yeah. Like, dang.
Yeah. Wow. You've
a double-edged sword.
It is. It's interesting because it makes me think about, there's two things that came up. So the whole natural idea of how things flow, right? Like you said, you meet someone, you see them at the gym, you're cute. Okay. And then you start dating, and then, so something that I'm always, I guess, challenged with is, should I let things flow naturally?
Girls always think that.
Should I let things, I'll just let it flow, I'll just let it go. And then it ends up being 3 months, and then you have the conversation. Like, I don't know what's this whole 3-month rule that has just been written out, but why? Like, I just don't understand. And so should I let it flow naturally, or should I go and have this conversation? Because sometimes these conversations need to be had. Like, you can't just allow things to flow. And so I guess I'm asking you guys, how do you guys go through your relationships, or when you're meeting people? Do you let things flow naturally? Because I have this whole fear of, well, if I set the tone and I really am straight about what I want, I may scare the other person away. And then that takes away from the naturalness. Some things do flow naturally, and that is beautiful, right? So that's one of the challenges I have, because I'm all about just getting clear on, where are we going? What are you looking for? I'm also not 15 anymore, where I could just hang out with someone for a year and then, if it doesn't work out or whatever. But I also don't want to make things not seem natural, right? Like, I don't care about scaring the other person away. I'd rather you walk away. I just don't want to make things forced by having those conversations and encouraging those conversations.
Both looking at me, huh? Well, Yeah, I mean, obviously the most logical, like half of your brain is going to say, obviously figure out who this person is before you spend a year with them. But I think there's the other half of the brain is like, yeah, but you're having fun. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, shut up. You're having fun. Whatever. Yeah, that's annoying. Yeah, this is too much. Yeah, but also you're having fun. So I think there's naturally just a time frame where men and women will just value that fun over maybe a realistic outcome.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I've asked a lot of my male friends this question. Does your perception of a woman change if she sleeps with you on the first date?
No.
It doesn't.
No. I don't like I'm assuming you mean negatively.
Negatively.
No, not for me personally.
Yeah.
I've known, I've had many women who have done that and have not done that, and I don't see like a difference in them personally. I think I would have developed that pattern in my head to like steer clear or go for it one way or the other. But I can't say off the top of my head that I would see somebody differently for that.
Do you think it takes away from getting to know the person?
No. I don't. I think it can. Obviously, it can. It depends on why they're doing it. Are they doing it because they really like you, or they're really attracted to you, or are they doing it because they think they have to do it? And you can kind of see the like pick me value coming out. I've seen that before.
So the intention behind it, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you could feel that off of them.
You can feel it. People are like, people can understand what's happening across the table from them or across the bed from them. They know why somebody is doing something. Are they just really trying hard to get some validation and that's why they're doing this? And they maybe necessarily wouldn't do it if they had the choice. That's obviously not good. But I think like for all of my personal relationships, that hasn't been the case, but I can see where maybe that might be the exception, where I can tell they're doing it because they think it's going to like impress the man, or like, oh, if I don't do this, he's going to think I'm a square or whatever. I don't think that it matters.
Say square?
Yeah, whatever the term, whatever, you know what I mean? That they're
I've
lame
never
or they're
been like,
boring.
I don't want him to think I'm a square.
Yeah,
And
well,
I've literally
whatever.
never said
We're
that in
never
my
gonna start
mind.
using that.
So yeah, I guess it personally, no, it doesn't change.
I'm of the opposite mindset in both ways with men and women.
Okay.
Like absolute opposite. Like the
Tell
thing
us
is that I automatically would not trust you if you and this is so crazy because you guys might not know this book. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. Okay, and it's a book for men. Okay, so women really, when they read this book, they don't necessarily like this book because there's a lot of truths about women that women don't want to hear, and one of them being that a woman wants to seduce you, but she doesn't want to pull the seed out of you. So like, I know this sounds crazy, right?
No, it doesn't.
She
It's
thinks
actually cool.
you think, and she thinks that what the part that she loves the most is seducing you because it validates her existence. But the second you release your seed, it is. And nobody can deny this to me, and I know people will. The second you release your seed for her, she's seen you as less.
What does that mean, release your seed? Like literally?
Like literally.
Literally?
Literally, orgasm. So like,
wow.
so like women want to seduce and they love the feeling of the seduction, but there's something that happens chemically on a very biological, very subconscious level where a woman sort of loses respect in that moment, even though she was the one who pulled it out of them. And I know that sounds insane.
No, it does not. It literally does not.
It's like you won something. Like even though men are the ones that win something, and then they might not feel whatever.
Yeah.
I think that if a man especially has the wherewithal to be like, I don't care how hot you are, I'm not sleeping with you on the first date because that's just my character and my value and like whatever it is. It's like, let me get to know you for a second. First of all, if you guys ever want a girl to fall in love with you, don't let her seduce you. Like if you actually like a girl a lot, don't let her seduce you with her body, because that will literally, her whole perception on you will change. You will literally have that girl forever. That is a really, really big thing. And same with women, men and women. I think if you give yourself fleshly and to me, I don't trust you if you have temptation and you succumb to it.
Right.
Like that. Like I might want to rip your clothes off of your body. We might actually be soulmates. There might be something universally about us that we literally know. Like the second we meet, actually, this is forever. You want to give me a ring on the first date? Like that's how much we know we're going to be in love forever. I still wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Have you always been like that though?
Nope. Actually, no. Well, okay, hold on.
I love the
So,
transparency.
yeah. So like that's the thing is like, first of all, I've never had a one night stand. So like where you just, one person that you just met and you never see them again. So somehow even if I've been with someone quickly, I ended up in like a 4-year relationship with them. Like it always ended up being that. But when I look back at all of the times that I've not been successful in relationships, it has started with me not knowing myself, me not demanding more of myself or of the other person, and sex. Sex clouded everything every time. And sex brings up insecurities. It brings up attachments. It connects you to someone in a way on a spiritual level that you now have even some of their own trauma literally binded inside of you.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. There is a spiritual component to sex.
1,000,000%.
And yeah, when
I think more even than the physical, I think the spiritual is much stronger.
yeah, exactly. So when you remove sex, when you remove the base desire of all human beings, the thing that we are literally like, it's like the number one biological mechanism of like force. We want to procreate, right? And when you remove that and you start looking at all the other things, there is like magic happens, man. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't agree with that one. Yeah.
That's okay. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to jump into therapy because this is something that they both spoke about in the podcast, and I think it's so important. It was quite interesting to hear their take on therapy. And unfortunately in our society, I mean, I think now we're becoming more and more open to it. Even I hear people talking about it. Therapy seen as like, oh, there must be something wrong with you. You need to seek therapy. In my honest opinion, I think everyone should be speaking to a therapist in some capacity. Why hold that bottled up inside? So Lewis spoke about how when he started dating his partner, he literally told her, we're going to start therapy together. And she was like, yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah. Super open to it.
Yeah.
So I want to know both of your thoughts on therapy and doing it together from the get-go. Like, is that too much pressure on the other individual? Like, I don't know. Like prior to Lewis talking about it, I haven't heard of, or at least maybe just no one opened up to me about it, that they went and did therapy with the person they started dating right away. So B, what are your thoughts?
I'm waiting for Dean. I'm going to wait for Dean to get back here.
Sorry, I was just fixing the cameras. Are you looking for me to go first?
No. I just wanted
you to be here.
I just wanted you to be here.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do I think on the therapy thing? So you know what that sounds like? Those two people on that podcast. It sounds like they really knew that they had long-term goals. None of us really look really far in the future. We don't realize we're gonna get real old, real fast, and like, might not have someone there for us because we haven't made any of the sacrifices or the changes that were needed to be able to get that. So it sounds like two people who knew what they wanted, who knew they wanted to be in a long-term relationship, were like, I would rather spend 3 months of our dating while we're in therapy without having sex, because that's what they talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Do not have sex for 3 months at the minimum.
It's funny because that's what I live by.
Yeah, I obviously say don't. Now I'm of the mindset of don't even have sex until you're married, but we can not get into that now. But point is, the longer they waited and worked on their own stuff, it's the most efficient 3 months you're ever going to have of your life, right? You go to therapy together and you figure it out. Are we going to work?
Dean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that takes a very enlightened being to say, number one, we're going to put off all the physical stuff for whatever, 3 months, or God forbid, until you're married.
It's not as hard as you think.
I'm just kidding. But I think it's probably, like I said, there's the one side of the brain that's like, yeah, that obviously makes sense. You should maybe like, have some sort of mediator therapist or something there. And like, but in reality, like, who the fuck's doing that? Like, nobody's going to be like, hey, I thought you were cool on our first date. We should go to therapy. By the way, I have a bunch of dead heads in my basement and I'm crazy. Like, that's the kind of vibe I would get. I think if a girl said like, we need to go to like therapy before we start like dating. But then there's obviously
I'm telling you, I feel like this would be most people's response.
It is. I guarantee you that most men's response, if a woman said we need to go to like couples therapy before we start dating to like blah, 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 whatever, work it out.
What if they just use the word mediator? We're going to go.
It still would be, I mean, I don't necessarily that I would take it
that's
like
conflict, but go ahead.
Just like putting that level of commitment forward in that stage might not necessarily be something that somebody would be interested in, or think that is a healthy sign that we already need somebody to like show us what we're going to be like or talk to us both about our values. Like I said, you should probably have some sort of discussion when you start dating, like with a lot of those subjects. But I don't think that most humans are like, they're geared towards their animal instincts, which is to go and sleep together maybe, or go and be physical. It may not have to go all the way, and to just see how it goes. And like the things come up, people change. So today you might say you want kids, and I say I don't want kids. And then when I'm 35, I'm like, fuck, I really want kids. So there's also the danger of like writing somebody off because they may not want kids at 29, but then you have no idea. Like if you had dated for a few years, they might say, well, like my whole perspective has changed, or my brother had a kid and I like his, like, you know what I mean? So there's also the danger of like over like calculating things in the beginning, and it might save you some time and it might save you a few years and a few, heartbreaks, but I think it also could ruin the cops are coming for me. I'm telling them too much of the truth here. It might also ruin what potentially could have worked if you had let it kind of like grow a bit and let somebody grow into you and you grow into them, versus, oh yeah, no, I definitely don't want kids. And then 5 years later you do want kids.
That's an interesting male perspective, because the male perspective, it can literally go on forever, right? Like they have no concept or understanding of the fact that women hit 30 and they have about 5 years. Obviously women have had like kids into their 40s, like times have changed, but we're talking about like how difficult it would be for a woman to hit 30, to meet a guy who loves her, wants to be with her, and says, I don't want them, but I might in the future. I don't know when. And she hits 33, 34. She's at that moment, right? Like even that could ruin the relationship in the moment, because now he feels pressured too, right? Whereas, right? Like that's a tough one for women. I gotta tell you that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course, there's a biological time limit, which is why sometimes you have to have those conversations.
Yeah.
If you are, if you know for a fact I am having 3 kids and I just need to find the guy who's going to donate the
no, you don't
whatever.
want that.
We're
That's
not
what
donate, but
about.
I need to find somebody who's going to be there with me. Not necessarily like donate and then take off, but like a partner, right? Now, if that's your perspective, I need kids. I want them no matter what, for sure. And I'm also getting a little older. Okay, well then maybe it's more important for you to have those discussions. And yeah, don't waste a year with a guy who maybe never could, like he hates it. He's already got a vasectomy. Then you're wasting your time. But like, if he is open to it and he isn't, if everything else is great and you say, and he says, yeah, I'm not sure about it. I don't know if I want 3 kids. Maybe 1 could be nice or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know that I
wouldn't write that off.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's intelligent to write that person off just because maybe, that doesn't line up immediately. Because I think a lot of men change perspectives when they get a little older. I've seen friends who said, I'm never having a kid, and they got 2 already now. They're 35 and they have 2, or 34 and they have 2. I've seen men who said, I'm going to marry this woman and we're going to have kids, and then they're already divorced and they're 31.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I agree that it's probably intelligent to discuss those things, but I also see from experience that, talk is talk, walk is walk. You got to walk the walk, not necessarily. Also, a lot of guys will say, yeah, baby, I want kids. Let's do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're screwed anyways.
Yeah.
People lie. They lie to themselves. They lie to each other. There's situations where, you couldn't imagine that a man would lie to you about wanting kids a year after you're dating. Like, he would never lie to me about that to continue this. And he might be like, I don't even know if I want him, but I'm going to fucking tell her I do. And I don't know, maybe you're not trying yet or whatever. Obviously, eventually you do have to get pregnant if he's saying you do. But he could easily be lying, or lying to himself and saying that he wants him. And then he's stressed about how much money he's making and how you're going to not be working, or how you want, whatever. So I don't know. I personally wouldn't necessarily put much value on like going to a therapist and figuring each other out immediately, because I think can easily, just as easily as it could be correct, it could easily be bullshit. Yeah. Like I said, bullshitting themselves, or they're bullshitting the therapist and their partner just because they don't want to lose that person and they don't think it's a big deal. She'll get over not having kids, or she'll get over not living in Toronto anymore and we'll move to Miami. She'll see it's much nice. Whatever the thing is that you're trying to like line up on. Dang. I don't know that you're going to get it out of like therapy necessarily, unless you're both like super enlightened beings like Jess over here, who's not going to lie because she doesn't want to waste your time. She doesn't care how hot you are, how much money you have, or whatever. She's not going to lie about that, right? Just to like appease your opinion on that scenario.
Yeah. Dang.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. There was one word I wanted to say and I forget it. Oh, okay. Scratch that.
Okay, hold on. How much time do we have so that we know what we can
This
touch
episode,
on?
we got about, if we're sticking to about an hour, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay,
10?
we gotta. I don't know. I want to give them something good. Okay, go through those notes. I want to give people some hope here, guys, because this.
Well, no, just because we're talking about real shit doesn't mean that there's no hope. I actually think talking about this is like the starting point
Of
for
hope.
all of,
Yeah.
1,000,000%. And I think we as humans just failed to do so. Either we don't see the value in doing so because we think people should be coming to us and we're everything. Like when I was younger, I thought I was like, I don't want to say hot shit, but I was like, oh, I'm perfect. I'm a perfect human and everyone should come and be with me because absolutely not. The last 2 years for me have been so huge when it comes to understanding myself. Oh, this is what you said. You said people will either lie to themselves, they'll bullshit themselves, or the therapist. I think oftentimes that's what we do. We even bullshit ourselves. We know truly deep down what we want, what we need, but we'll try to paint another picture in order to appease someone else or to make something work just because we're seeking something, whether it's validation, whether it's companionship, right? And so we're not doing the work. We don't understand ourselves. There's no way I think that we're going to get to or get the thing that we're looking for. I remember I was seeing someone who clearly told me he didn't want children. And so when I hear that, I'm not going to try to change your mind and explain to you why I see value in having kids and a family. And so he explained to me, and from my understanding, and I don't want to say I'm a psychologist, but like I study psychology, I do the work. And I came to realize through his responses that he had his own childhood trauma that led him to view kids in a certain light, leading him to not want to have children. And I'm not going to challenge that for you. I may tell you, well, maybe try to dissect that and see it in a different light. But I wasn't going to challenge him and explain to him why he needed to have children. So I told him, I said, you know, this isn't going to work out because this is really, really important to me. And I think values go far beyond just getting married and having kids. Like there's other things. And even Lewis talks about it. Like he told his partner that for him, she needs to understand that he's not home most evenings because for him, one of his really important values is being able to speak on stages in different countries. So that's not like the typical value that we hear of like having family and kids, right? So that was important to him. So back to the scenario that I was giving is, you know, I just told the individual, unfortunately, this won't work out for me because you've clearly told me, and I don't want to convince you otherwise.
Yeah.
So I respect your openness. I'm so glad that we were able to talk about this, but what's the point? Like you're going to go through this relationship wondering if ever this person may change their mind. Like I don't think that's fair to either one of the parties.
Nope.
So yeah.
I wanted to touch on something I said earlier about just about dying to yourself and dying to all these different things and becoming insertive. Remember I said about the toxic,
Serving.
the toxic concept of like doing things for someone and then reaching a point where you shut down because you don't feel that there's enough
reciprocating.
right.
Yeah.
So the thing is that what worked for me is that I have to remind myself that everything I do, I don't need an outcome, and that it doesn't mean anything about me if I don't have that reciprocated, right? So like we tend to want to close up after bad experiences and we keep bringing that into the next relationship and the next relationship. But really, if we look inside ourselves, when we meet someone new and we are so fond of them, right? Like we do idealize them and we're fond of them and we think they're, you know, even their broken parts like inspire us and there's something about us that's kind towards them. And then the more we feel a certain way about something, we start changing that opinion of them. They become less pure and less sweet in their brokenness, and we're less likely to want to like dig up the soil of all the stuff that's underneath to be able to find the diamond that's in there, like being committed to finding the diamond that's in there. And what worked for me is nobody owes me anything, and still I want to give him everything. And if he never returns a single thing to me, I know what I gave, and it doesn't mean anything about me that he didn't give it back.
It doesn't make you less of a person either.
And so like this is what I keep even in my current relationship. It's like I'm not a victim to my actions, the good things that I'm doing here. Like this is not like if I claim I love him and that's what I truly want in my heart of hearts, then the things that I do are of a selfless nature. And yeah, if you're working on yourself, you have to keep checking in and be like, okay, well, are you just mad because you did something and now you're not getting the response you want? Or do you want to commit to doing that from your heart and not
without any
expecting
expectation.
anything?
Yeah.
I think that's the key is like, are you doing them so that you can get reciprocation? Because you're looking for them, they haven't said, I love you in 2 days, so I'm going to buy them some flowers so then maybe they do. Or are you doing them just because you want to do them and it makes you feel good to do something for somebody else? That's the key. I think you're going to have the resent if you're doing it to get something in return, whether it be verbally or emotionally or physically. Like if you're buying them something nice so that they'll buy you something nice the next week and then they don't, you're, going to feel like crap.
But again, you don't know that you're doing that. So it's like when you have those feelings inside of you, when you're in a relationship, and sometimes they're not correlated at all. Like I bought you whatever last week. I bought you flowers last week. But this week the dishes are in the sink, and we're talking love languages obviously still, but and now something in me feels unappreciated, but really it's because on some subconscious level, I just wanted you to buy me flowers back again. You really have to just, the only thing to do is once you feel the discomfort and the annoyance in the relationship, it's like, bam, like turn it on and be like, okay, why do I feel this? Right? Because we don't know if it's resentment from the person not reciprocating. Like something just comes up in us, we're triggered. We're like, what? No, is that not?
I actually think it's even deeper than that. And it might not even be the action itself. It might be something else, but it's being represented in that action that's taking place. Like I think even in the podcast, Mel was sharing her story, how her husband asked her to fold the boxes. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
had asked her to fold the boxes, and she kept pushing it off because she was so busy.
And she hates folding boxes. It's nothing
and she
about
hates
anything.
folding boxes, but for him, it had nothing to do with the boxes. He didn't care about the boxes. It had something to do with the fact that it felt like she wasn't listening to him and listening to his needs because she wouldn't fold the boxes. So really, boxes, shoes, couch, whatever you want it to be, it's not that thing. It's actually much deeper than that. And so, I don't know how they came to understand what it really was, but oftentimes I think that's what it is. We're triggered by something else, which in my honest opinion typically stems from our childhood, things that we lacked, things that we didn't receive. And so those things are being re-triggered again and again. And so what happens is, they even said, like, when we're in unhealthy relationships and when there's lack of communication, it magnifies those insecurities, and it even actually leads you to act in a certain way, which isn't really true to who you are.
Yeah. I have one more question for you, Dean.
Sure.
Would you rather be deeply respected by a woman or loved?
I know my answer right away as soon as you ask that.
Do you want love or do you want respect as a man?
Well, I don't think you can have love without respect. So I don't know that you can respect somebody without loving them, and I don't know that you could love somebody without respecting them.
Right, but if you could choose, right? And it's like, because here's the thing. This is what I'm fishing for, is that men and women, they usually, and sorry, but this is also in the Bible, guys. It says husbands.
Why are you apologizing?
It says wives, love your husbands, and it says wives, respect your husbands.
Right.
And so it doesn't call women to love their husbands, because the heart is very fickle, and that a man's love and appreciation grows through the respect of the woman and having that respect. So like, I know what you mean, because obviously if I'm showing you respect, I love you as well. Right. But if you could have it, and now I feel like I molded your answer, but do you know what I mean? Like respect or love as a man, and as
I think we got the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know how to separate the
Yeah.
I think for a man especially, even in friendships, like if there's no respect, it's zero. If there's no respect from the woman that you're trying to date or the man that you're trying to date or whatever, the other person, there is no such thing as love. I don't know that you could love somebody without respecting them. I think that maybe the biblical sense is like, listen to your husband, like do the things that you need to do for him, maybe because that was the time that it was written in, and maybe back then it meant something different. But I think if you're asking today, there is no separation between love and respect. If you're going to love somebody, you must respect them. And if you respect them, you obviously, you don't love everybody you respect. But I think that, there is no really separating them when it comes to like a relationship between two people like that. There is, I don't know how to separate the two.
Interesting. Yeah. How about you?
Immediately my mind said respect. And I'm coming from personal experiences why do I love my family so deeply? I respect who they are as humans. And I think respect goes a long way. Love, even in relationships, love is not it. Love is a part of it, but it's not everything. And that's why I'm so, big on, yes, the lovey-dovey, the kissing, the hugging, like that's all great, but there's so much more to that. So for me, I would say hands down respect. Like you have to respect the individual that you're with. I think if you respect them, you will go lengths for them. And that's even seen in like platonic relationships too. When you respect someone, when you respect a mentor, like you will do things that maybe your temptations won't lead you to do.
The reason why I said respect, and what you're saying is exactly it, is like for me, the respect thing is like, I can love a man, and here's the thing, as a woman, I can love you, but I can cause you a whole lot of heartache because of my love being so deep for you that I take it out on you in a different, like, right? Like love is a complicated thing. If I love you and you hurt me, I might be inclined to hurt you out of this necessity to feel loved. But the thing is if I respect you, my love and that feeling of whatever it is isn't going to get in the way of how I respond to you. It's like, that's, I guess, how I was thinking of it. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you're describing like that, then yeah, you need to have the respect to not do something because you maybe today don't feel as loved or whatever. I guess that,
Because love is so like, dude, like we are so
up and down,
conditional. We're so
wishy-washy.
conditional about our love.
Yeah.
And so like, I could really not, I could love you, but not feel love for you in that moment at all. Right. And it's like, what makes up for not having love for you when my emotions are like this, because they are, and we're
human,
deep
it's
respect.
Yeah. I think I agree. And not even
but I really like what you said about one not being without the other.
Well, he painted in such a great way. Like they go hand in hand, right?
I just don't know how you could love somebody without respecting them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how I could be like, oh, this girl's amazing, I love her, but
I almost
also
feel like
she's kind of a loser. I don't really respect what she does during the day, or like what, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe
no,
I
think you can love a woman. It's like I was watching Peaky Blinders. I was watching Peaky Blinders yesterday. My guy's obsessed with the show right now, and there's two groups, the gangsters or whatever, and each like main guy in each gangster group is in love with a prostitute, and so like, do they love her? Yes. Do they want to take her out of that because they don't respect what she does, or like? There's no respect for her that way, but I love you, so I need you to change what you're doing so that I can respect you, right? So like that's...
Yeah, but I would argue that they respect her as a whole, but they don't respect that action, right? So you can respect somebody and then maybe not respect their occupation, and then, want to help them change it. But
is that like a part of their identity? Like,
and then is it love to try to get them to change that?
Yeah.
Right. And then that's the question. And well, I would argue in that situation, yes, but
Well, if it's beneficial change, if it's a beneficial change that you're moving from the town that you grew up in, or the occupation that you have that may not be the greatest occupation, say if you really want to be a prostitute, then obviously it's not a great idea to date one and then try to change it, right? If she doesn't want to be, but she, for instance, has to be, like in the case of this TV show or whatever the example is, then I think that you can respect somebody and love them, but also want to help them change. It just depends on, do they want to change, or do you want them to change? And you got to obviously be honest with that. And now we're going in deep on a TV character, but I don't know.
This is a good one, guys. I really like this.
Dean, thanks for joining us. This is so great.
Thanks for having me.
We need that male perspective. Yeah, that was like, and I wasn't expecting like 90% of the answers he gave. They were good. Yeah.
I'm glad I could surprise you.
Well, yeah, you did. And it also makes me think of like, I really need to work on my own perceptions of what I think men want, right? Like I have no idea what men want. And men don't have any idea what we want, and we all got to work on it harder, guys. Like, dang.
I just think we need to have more conversations, and I often find when women have problems, they go to their friends, who are typically women, and they ask them for advice.
And honestly, if we look around at a lot of our female friendships, can you say, Jess, in all honesty, in all your female relationships, that you know they're perfectly matched and it's a great relationship? Majority.
No, not all of them.
Majority.
Yeah. Not all.
Here's my final piece of advice. If you're having trouble, if you're a man and you're a straight man, you're having trouble with your girlfriend, do not go to your male friends. Go to another girl that you know who is a friend who is in a relationship for a while or whatever, somebody that you respect that is of the same sex as the person you're dating, not the same sex as you.
And vice versa, you think? Like,
Yeah,
you think
I think women should talk to men if they're having problems with their man, and not talk to their friends if they're having problems. Like,
And this is what I was trying to get
about
to.
that, because the thing is like Steve Harvey always says this. He goes, "We not your friends really. Like we just waiting until the moment comes." So it's like
that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. But
to
to be careful in that sense too, right? Because both perspectives can be wrong when it comes to giving a female advice, right? Like your girlfriends could just be like, "Screw him," blah blah blah, and like be triggered by their own.
They're waiting for single Jess to come back so we can go drinking on
Yeah,
Fridays
yeah.
again.
Or you know, and then the guy himself could be like, "Yo, girl, you shouldn't be treated like that because you know that's not so." You know, like so you gotta be careful. You
Yeah,
gotta be careful. You have to do what you said, which is go to someone who you respect, who's in a relationship, and you know he loves her and they have a good relationship. If you want the male perspective like that, you know, and you know on a very deep core level that he hasn't been trying to or would jump at the opportunity to in the moment.
Yeah, obviously there's that stipulation. They cannot be interested in you for any other reason other than just being your friend. And
Dean's
if you don't
just
have
like
that,
common sense, girl. Like just common sense
just
the whole time.
Think about it. Or if you don't have somebody like that, maybe ask like your, I don't know, a family member.
So that's
or
what I was going to touch on. I go
Yeah.
to my brother or my dad, and I'm super close to them, and I will ask them they've been in committed relationships for a very long time, and I like hearing what they have to say, you know, because I think it's a different perspective. You guys think differently, clearly through our conversation. You know, we didn't get the responses that we thought we would, and that's exactly why you're here to, you know, give us your perspective. So yeah, but then also I would just tie this back up to what you were saying before, like you don't always have to tell your friends about every single issue you have in a relationship. You know, we're very quick to complain about the things that are difficult and not highlight the things that are so beautiful. And that's one thing that's spoken about in the podcast. It's like you forget how incredible your partner is because sometimes there's that one thing that's triggering you, you know, but you have to ground yourself and remind yourself, okay, aside from that, they are amazing because of
these
X,
things,
Y, and Z, right? And I actually respect a lot of my friends who have been in relationships for both for a decade at least now, and they very rarely talk about any issues they have in their relationship. They're not pretending like everything's perfect. Of course, every relationship is a challenge. But they're
also aware that like these are seasons, they come and they go, and I'm not going to paint a picture of the partner, the man or woman that I really love. I'm not going to paint this picture because I know their character truly deeply, and I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. So like, why would I do this to just get the validation from the other person of like, yeah, you right now, they wrong.
Exactly. Instead of getting that, try to figure out what's bothering you.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with your partner. At the end of the day, that's your partner in life and in everything else.
Ooh,
that's why I always emphasize that word. It's like not a boyfriend or a girlfriend or what, it's a partner. And this is a partner that you're going to do a multitude of things with. So if you want to be in a partnership, learn to communicate. You communicate with your friends, communicate with your partner.
Bam.
I think that's
Dean,
a wrap.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
No? Any last thoughts? You want to finish this off? Dean?
My empty brain gave you my last thought. Go to the opposite sex for advice if that's what you're dating. If you're a straight man, go to another straight woman. And if you're a straight woman, go to a straight man who's not interested in you. And if you don't have anybody like that, go to
call Dean.
Call me.
Dean. Yeah, call Dean.
Yes, please, women, call me for all your advice. Go to a therapist who is of the opposite sex. Like, you know what I mean? You may not be able to always access that, but there are tons of websites where you can go to and you can talk to somebody very cheaply and have a video conversation or something like that. Or, you know, do some research on your own and figure it out. But I strongly, just from my own experience and experience of most of my friends, when they go to a woman and they're a woman, a lot of the times they get negative advice because of jealousy of the relationship. Not necessarily like she wants my man, but she wants a relationship that you have, and she might be willing to help you tear it down because she's
not
lonely in the fact that she is not in a relationship and her friends are, and vice versa. I've seen the same thing with men where they're like, fuck that B word. I'm not like, you don't need that B word. Like, come be single with the boys, come back and do coke and drink at the clubs every night. You're not doing that anymore. So I'm gonna like kind of like, yo, fuck her, bro. Like, she's talking to boys on social media. Fuck her, bro. Right or wrong. And then that's like, oh, but I've also been dating her for 5 years and you're kind of a goof. So maybe I'll talk to another girl and she'll tell me, yeah, but she's probably just jealous because you're doing this or whatever. And then this is how you can do something, then see if it changes versus like, you know, you can have issues if you go to a friend that's the same sex who just wants to see you single again.
Alrighty.
Yeah, man, that's good.
Well, thank you for joining us. I believe this is our 10th episode, if I'm not mistaken. We are so thankful for you guys for tuning in. And if you have any comments or any ideas that are different than ours, you can drop them in the comment section on our YouTube page. So thank you so much. And
we'll see you next week.
See you guys soon.